So not that long ago, ChatGPT released Vision API, and as you know by now, probably, I'm a huge fan of being able to talk to your PDFs. Now, Vision doesn't really support talking to PDFs just yet, but it does support JPEGs and images. So today we're going to take a look and compare and contrast, I would say, the performance of ChatGPT's Vision when it comes to reading through PDFs. We're going to work around that. No spoilers for now, but yeah, we're going to see how ChatGPT's Vision performs against the more traditional sort of OCR approach that we've seen in the past. Without any further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, so in our typical fashion, we're going to first take a look at how the whole system works. Then we're going to take a look at how the database is set up. Today we're using Airtable, but you could be using SmartSuite or something else. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to set up the whole thing, the whole automation that runs behind the scenes using make.com. You can, of course, download the make.com template. Down in the description below, there's a link that I've included, but you can always follow along and just DIY this bad boy with me. So without any further ado, let's kickstart the process. We have our PDF here. Those PDFs are in varying lengths. So like some of them are 18 pages like this one, and there's some other ones that are slightly smaller and bigger. It doesn't really matter. The system should be able to handle any number of pages. Of course, it becomes a little bit more expensive at that point, but hey ho. So let's process this via ChatGPT Vision, and the system is now starting up, and it will begin processing every single page, because it basically takes every single page and processes it individually as its own standalone image, so to speak. One of those funky things that we have to deal with right now with ChatGPT Vision. It only does JPEGs and PNGs and GIFs and that sort of thing, but not PDFs or videos or anything like that, at least right now. And we're nearly done, and we should have a nice little summary of the whole thing. And here we go. Okay, what do we have in summary? Let's take a look. We have a quick transcript. We have like a page-by-page commentary, really. Then we have a comprehensive summary. And then we also have some common startup question topics. Again, I set all of these up myself. So I asked in my prompt, like, what do I want for ChatGPT to answer? Doesn't particularly specify founders. And then I also asked ChatGPT on its take on this particular startup. Would it invest in it? What are its thoughts about this particular startup? It looks fairly good. Now let's go and take a look at how I've set up the database in order for this thing to work. Okay, so the database is actually fairly straightforward. There is only one table. Of course, in my database, there's many tables, but in order for you to replicate a similar workflow, you just need very few things, actually. You need a table, or you need an Airtable database, if we're gonna go that back. So Airtable database, one table, and then 6 columns. One column for just the name. Then we have our PDF attachment that you can just throw in there. Then we have our trigger, processed via ChatGPT Vision, just a little checkbox, nothing fancy. And then we have ChatGPT Vision summary, which is just a long text. Again, nothing super fancy. Then we have PDF to image. And this is important because we want to be economical in how we process our conversion credits with Convert API, which is a service that I'm using in my automation. And yeah, you basically need to run this once, split the PDF into images, and then store those images in Airtable so that you can basically work on them as you go instead of constantly splitting it needlessly in order for ChatGPT to then process that data. And then we also have a nice little flag, as I like to call them, that essentially as soon as the splitting process has finished, you can then kind of say, look, I've completed my conversion here and there's no need for it to run ever again for this particular file. If you want it to run again, just, you can clear the flag and the system will rerun the conversion one more time. But in this particular case, I can just leave the flag there. That's the design for the database. Let's take a look at how the automation is set up. All right, so here we are. Automation time. If you've been following the channel for a while, you probably know how I like to trigger my automations. I usually go into automations, then I create a quick little trigger. In this case, what we're basically using is, in the table of documents, when the condition is the process via ChatGPT Vision is checked, then we trigger our script. So essentially, the script that we run has been exactly the same for a very long time. And the only thing you will need to do is just copy the script as is, and then change this particular webhook address to a webhook address that you get when you're replicating this yourself. Don't forget to add the record ID here, just like a variable, and then just map the Airtable record ID in the value, just like I've done here. Once you're done, just press finish editing. Turn this on and you're set for your trigger. The next steps are actually very easy. Next thing you need to do is jump into Make, create a new scenario, obviously, or you can import the template that I've got down in the description. First step is, of course, to manage the little triggering part here. The webhooks, just sort out your webhook, create a webhook. This is the address that you actually need to use in the trigger. The next step to do is to actually fetch the document that got triggered, and that is just mapped like so. What you could do, what I tend to do, is something like this. I just open up two curly brackets, then you need to name the number of the module, so 1, and then we know that the payload that's going to be coming in is going to be named record_ID like so, and you have to be very careful with like capitalization. record_I_D. Close your brackets with two closing curly brackets, and then it should turn on like that. So, or you can just map it as it comes. So that's that. The next step in our automation process is to just update the user that something's happening. And we're fetching that same document that just got triggered, and we're just basically saying in the ChatGPT Vision summary field that, dude, we're starting up now, and that just basically creates this little timestamp and just notifies the user that something's happening. The next thing is a router, and here is where it kind of gets a little bit complicated because of Vision's inability to process PDFs, but it's not that hard to master this if you know what you're doing. As soon as you have this router in place, the first path that you need to create should basically say that, look, if PDF to image conversion complete does not exist, it's that flag we were talking about earlier, this thing, if that doesn't exist, then go through this path first and then follow this path on the bottom. The path that is the first path that the system needs to take, first and foremost, gets the URL in this HTTP module, because we want to convert it into like a binary data. I believe it's being converted into base64, but don't quote me on that. It just downloads that file, and then we upload that file into Convert API. So we're using the upload a file module, and it's being mapped automatically from the previous step module 13. Then we make an API call, and this API call looks something like this. We are using the convert PDF to split, and then we're adding store file equals true as a little parameter, and then we also add the file parameter and map in the file ID from the previous step. That's basically it. There's nothing else mapped here in this particular request. Once the response comes through, we use an iterator to iterate through the files of that response, because it basically takes the PDF and splits it into multiple files. Then we're using again Convert API's module to convert a file, and this time I've mapped it like so, where we have the file ID as the adding method, the file ID from the iterator, and we're basically telling it to convert it from PDF to JPEG. Everything else is just by default, and also we're saying that we want to store these files in Convert API. Then we have an aggregator that basically aggregates all of these files, the file URL essentially, into Airtable's upload a file structure. So don't use custom, use Airtable PDF to image, because that's our little attachment field over here. That's where we want to put our split images, because this is a PDF and these are basically JPEGs. So yeah, we need to store them somewhere. So yeah, that's basically it. As soon as that is mapped like so, then you just need to open up Airtable and map that array in. Also, as you see, I'm adding my flag to say that the process of the PDF to image conversion has been completed, right? And yeah, just don't forget to map the correct record ID. But yeah, other than that, it's all standard stuff. The first time that it runs, it will take this top path for that particular PDF. If you've already run this process, then it will skip this top path, or in the case that it runs the first time, it will then choose to run the second path, because make works in this sort of way where it processes the top path first and then the subsequent bottom paths next. So it will initially try to go this way, and if it will have its way, it will, and then it will try this bottom way. So here I'm fetching the record again, and this is a very crucial step, because if it's the first time that it's ever run, we want to fetch the record, the document record again, because now it has got the JPEGs that we're looking for. Like I said, Vision does not support PDFs, so we need JPEGs. We need to feed it JPEGs. So the next step, as soon as you've done that, like I've done here, the next step is to just add, for fun, the little flag that says PDF to image conversion complete exists. We want to make sure that the flag is there. Then we are taking our array from module number 36, from this module, not from any other module previously, that particular module specifically, PDF to image, and we iterate through that array. And here's our analysis, right? Here's where we use Vision API finally. My prompt looks like so. Carefully analyze the image of the PDF page, provided, identify and transcribe all text, yada, yada, yada. Do not add any conversational language. Over here, I'm actually saying, how would you like to specify an image URL, and then I'm just mapping the URL that I fetch from Airtable. Now, I can hear some of you experts say already that, Alex, why don't you just create an array and pass everything into one big request to Vision? Well, you're gonna reach Vision's API token, like the token limit, very, very, very quickly. I've tried it, doesn't work. It crashes, it's not fun. So it's a better approach to first process each page one at a time, because that you're rarely gonna hit that limit of token usage. The next step that I'm doing is I'm updating that document again for the sake of the user who just requested this. And I'm basically saying, look, I've processed, and you see I'm putting that update record right after my Vision call. Yeah, so I'm putting it right after, and basically I'm saying I'm processed bundle order position, like I've processed page 1 out of, let's say, 18 or 2 out of 18. So as it's iterating, the user on the front end in Airtable gets an update to say, hey, okay, something's moving, something's happening. So they don't second guess themselves and like, oh, is it broken? What's happening? So yeah, that's the main purpose of this. And yeah, finally, I have a little text aggregator that looks like so. I've got my file name. Don't ask me why I've added it. I think it's kind of crucial for ChatGPT's module that we're going to take a look in a sec to understand or see some kind of logic between which page it is, so that it can have a coherent structure of the document. So that's why I'm adding the file name here, and then image summary, and I'm basically pushing the message content from Vision into this little thing. At the end of it, it looks something like that, right? We have file, and then we have like the summary, and it just basically adding a bunch of different things. It's all it does. Then we have the big process, which basically takes all that text and creates, or rather answers, a bunch of questions. So my prompt looks something like this. I'm using ChatGPT 4.11.06 preview. It's the turbo version that supports like about 120,000 tokens, which is great. What we have here is just a system message. You're a savant investment manager who specializes in providing summaries of pitch decks. Then we have the text summaries of ChatGPT's Vision and all of that. The mission is to basically look through the pitch deck, create a transcript, create a comprehensive summary, answer a few common questions, provide the take on the company, is it worth the investment, and blah, 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 blah. Then I'm basically saying, when it comes to startup question topics, these are kind of like the questions that I'm after. And I'm also saying, finally, do not add any conversational language. So yeah, that's basically that. Finally, what I'm doing, I'm basically taking that response as is and printing it into the ChatGPT Vision summary. We don't necessarily need to keep, the processing of pages or, the starting up message. So I'm just overwriting everything on top of this little field within that particular document's record. It's very straightforward, very simple. That's basically it in terms of the automation. So what's my verdict? My verdict is that it's an expensive exercise to use Vision to perform a readout or like to answer questions about a PDF. But it's a very, very effective, detailed method. If you don't mind burning through tokens, if you don't mind burning through conversion credits, I think it's fantastic. Honestly, the quality of some of the responses is outstanding. In fact, I don't know if it's in this particular one, but because it's got access to the internet, it can also provide suggestions that are completely outside of the document itself. Like for in this case, giving me commentary about the potential success of this company called Bliss. And it's basically saying that, and the success of Bliss will depend on the ability to differentiate itself from established players like Covertee. There's nothing mentioned in the document about Covertee, but because it can see the general concept of what this startup is trying to do, and it's got a sense of what's out there in the internet, it provides really, really, really interesting insight, which is not something that other services like ChatDoc provide right now, which is awesome. If you haven't subscribed already, do subscribe to the channel now so that you don't miss any future uploads that we will upload to the channel. My name is Alex, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.